It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Algoma head men's curling coach, Coach Tom Coulterman. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college curling?
Actually, it was after I had coached Brad Jacobs at the Olympics. I took a couple of years off, and I knew the athletic director at the university, and I had actually helped him find a couple of coaches before me. And at that point, one of the coaches retired, and so he reached out to say, "Well, would you help me find somebody?" And I said, "Well, maybe this time I'll try it myself and just see how it goes."
What was that experience like getting into the sport of curling on the coaching side?
On the coaching side, it was interesting because I was a high school teacher, and I had just switched schools from one of the older schools in Sault Ste. Marie to one of the newer schools. I had coached hockey before that, but when I got to the new school, they already had an existing guy that was going to coach hockey, and they asked if I would be interested in one of the other sports. I had taken up curling maybe 6 or 7 years before that, and I decided, sure, I'll try it. And I've been at it ever since.
What was that transition like for you, as you said, coaching hockey originally to going to coaching curling?
Uh, it was actually pretty easy going from coaching maybe a team of 16 to 20 people as to coaching a team of maybe 4 or 5 people. It was great. It was super.
What was that experience like for you coaching in the Canadian Curling Championship?
That one was really neat because in Ontario, um, we only had one team that would go representing all of Ontario to what is called the Canadian Junior Women's Curling Championship. And in 1991, uh, following the protocol of all the other curling competitions in Canada, they decided to give Northern Ontario junior women a chance to have their own team at the Canadian Championships. And so we happened to win that particular championship that year, the very first year that Northern Ontario had their own team. And what was really good about it for me was that my daughter was on the team. She was the skip, and the three other girls had gone to school together since kindergarten, and they all knew each other really well. Um, so they won the championship, the Northern Ontario championship that year, and we went out to Leduc, Alberta. We placed fifth. We repeated in 1992, and that year we won the silver medal. We lost the championship game to a team from Saskatchewan, skipped by a girl by the name of Amber Holland, who is a top Canadian women's curler. So it was really neat. It was a neat experience for me, being the coach, being the father of the skip, and knowing all the girls really well.
What was that experience like coaching on the men's side of the national team?
At the men's championship, which is called the Brier, when I got into curling in 1969, from that point, I just fell in love with the sport. And one of my goals had always been to play at the Brier, to compete at the Brier. Well, I wasn't as great a curler or as competitive curler as I would have liked to have been. So um, when I got to go to the Brier as a coach, I was fulfilling a dream of mine for a long time. So at 2013 back to 1969, it was a dream for a long time. So it was great.
In 2013, what was that experience like coaching in the Tim Holtz Championship?
Well, going to that, I was a little bit nervous about it because I didn't know. Um, it was my first time at it, and I didn't know what to expect in terms of the coaching as far as the protocols, the things that the team would demand of me at the championship. So it was a learning experience, but it was a great experience. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
For you as a coach, what was that experience like taking a member of your coaching program to the Olympics in 2014 to go to Sydney?
Okay, so 2013 to 2014, that was a miracle or a dream year, I'll call it, because we won the championship here in Canada. We went to the World's Championship and we won a silver medal. We lost to Nicholas Edin's team, Skip from Sweden. And then we won the Canadian Olympic trials that next winter, fall. And then we had a few months to get ready to go to the Olympics. And from the March of 2013 to the end of February 2014, it was just a miracle year. I had always dreamed of walking into Olympic Stadium behind the Canadian flag with all of the Team Canada athletes that were competing at the Olympics and all the coaches and the officials. And when it happened, I was fulfilling a lifelong dream.
For you, what were some of your favorite memories coaching in that 2014 Olympics in Sochi?
The 2014 Olympics, I guess during the medal presentation, when the team was getting their gold medals, standing there and singing "O Canada" with the athletes and the other coaches that were there.
What was that transition like for you going from coaching on the Olympic stage to getting into college coaching?
It was great. Actually, I coached the same team for another couple of years after that. We went back to the Brier a couple of times. We won a silver medal at the Brier. We never did win the Brier again. But after 2016, I decided it was time for a change. And so I stepped back a little bit. And then a few years later, I came on to the university scene with with the Algoma University team. And it was interesting because the team, we don't attract what I call the top competitive junior curlers from our province. We're a small university in Northern Ontario. The bigger universities in Southern Ontario normally attract the top curling athletes, I'll call them. And so it was interesting. In my first year, I happened to have 5 young men come out for curling, along with a few others. We had our tryouts, and we had about 8 or 9 people, but 5 of them were from Nigeria. They were students at the school, and they decided they wanted to try it. Now, they had never been on ice before. They weren't used to being out in the cold like that. So it was a learning experience for them, but it was also a learning experience for me, really stepping in to the unknown, basically.
How is that feeling like when you got announced to become the next head coach?
It was okay. Nothing really special about it because I know that Mark had wanted me to do that for quite a while, and I finally said yes. And so I felt honored to be asked. And when I heard the announcement, it was great.
For you, what was that process like building your coaching staff around you and the players around you?
Well, I've got one assistant coach, and the school already had a number of people in place. Like we had an athletic therapist, we had a one of the psychology profs who was also a sports psychologist. In fact, he had worked with us during our lead up to the Olympics with the Brad Jacobs team, so he was there for him helping with the team. We had a nutritionist, we had physical trainers. All of that stuff was in place at the university. So the only person that I brought on was my assistant coach, and he's been with me now for a number of years. And so that was the only person I really had to work to get to come on.
What does a typical game day look like?
If we're at a competition out of town, we get up early in the morning so that we're up at least 2.5 hours before our game. So if our game is at 8:30, or I'm sorry, at 8 or 9 o'clock, we're up 2.5 hours before that, get our breakfast, get changed. We normally get changed at the hotel, and we will drive to the curling rink with our uniforms already on. And we get to the curling club, then we do our stretching and our preparation. We have our team meeting before the game. And then they normally have a 10-minute practice on the ice that they're going to be using. And then we get into the game. The game lasts normally 2 hours. So after the game, we have a cool down, and then we have a team meeting, post-game meeting. And then we head out for something to eat because normally we'll be back on the ice about 4 or 5 hours later for at least a 2-game day. And back at the hotel for something or for a small rest, and then repeat the process again for our second game.
What was that feeling like when you got your first career win as a head coach?
You know what? I'm still waiting for it. As I said, we don't attract the top junior curlers. We're lucky to be able to sometimes field a team. So I'm still waiting for that first win. I'm hoping it'll come in a couple of weeks when we have our OUA, or Ontario University Athletic Championships. I'll let you know when it comes.
Can you talk about the culture that you started to build for the curling program?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Can you talk about the culture that you started to build for the curling program?
Yeah, the curling program, actually, Canada has a very good coaching program, and the curling sport of curling has its programs within that coaching program as well. And so I started coaching in 1974. And in 1973, I really got into the coaching program. And after that, the Curling Canada coaching program. And after that, I got into delivering some of the coaching program units all around the province, sometimes even out of province. And I did that for at least another 20 some years, 25 years. And I finally got away from that.
For my listeners that don't know, how do you compete in curling?
How do you peak?
Compete.
Oh, compete. In what sense? What do you mean in terms of the championships or just a game itself?
Just a game itself.
Just a game. Okay. So a game lasts, it can go either 8 or 10 ends, is what they are called. And one of the key things when you start the game is who's going to throw the last rock. What team will have last rock advantage at the end of the end? Because sometimes, or a lot of times, that last rock makes a big difference to the end and maybe to the game itself. Anyway, within the game itself, the 4 players that are playing on each team, Team A and Team B, they alternate shots. And at the end, the team with rocks closest to the center, or the pin, it's called, count. They count the points. And it can be 1, 2, 3, it can be up to 8 points, which is very unlikely in a lot of cases. 8 enders, they're called, are very rare. But you have to have so many rocks closer to the center than the opposition team. And you get a point for each rock that you do. And you do that for 8 or 10 ends. In the next end, if you get a point in end 1, then in end 2, you switch what's called hammer. The other team now gets last rock advantage. And that keeps going on. If nobody scores a point, if there are no points in the circles or no rocks in the circles at the end of the end, that's called a blank end. And then you just repeat the process in the next end. And so at the end of the end, whoever has the most points wins.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
We compete against big universities from Southern Ontario, like Western or Guelph University is a top team. Waterloo or Wilfrid Laurier universities are 2 consistently top teams. Trent University is a top team. These are some of the top teams that we will see in a couple of weeks when we go down to our championship.
What is that like competing against teams like Brock's and Trent?
It's great because every time I go out there, we always have what I'm calling right now a learning experience. How good do we want to be? And this is what you're going to have to be like if you want to be a championship team. Right now, I've got this year. I'm lucky that I've got 5 people on the team. We carry a spare 5 people that have curled. Actually, one of them has had some experience as a competitive junior curler outside of university curling, and so he's what's called our skip. But the other 5, or the other 4, we're all learning together basically what it takes to be a championship team. So when we play a top team like that, we set our goals for the game. We've come close to winning. In the last game we played just a couple weekends ago, we should have won our first game ever with Algoma University, but we missed by about an inch and not getting the last point. So it was a tide coming into the last end.
What is that game day atmosphere like at home?
When we're at home, it's interesting. Like curling doesn't get our university curling team. We won't get a lot of people out to watch our games, other than the parents or maybe some of the friends of some of the players, because we don't play at the university. We compete in a curling club, a local curling club, which is away from the university. So we don't get a lot of people coming in to watch our particular game unless we're at a national, or I'll say an OUA championship, a provincial championship, or if we went to a nationals, then we would have a lot of people watching.
As a head coach, what is that recruitment process like looking at prospective student athletes?
The recruitment process, we've started going out now, and we go to the provincial high school championships. We go to the regional high school championships. We go to the top competitive, they're called U18, U20, U21 championships in Ontario. And we let ourselves be known. If somebody's interested, we'll sit down and talk with them and tell them what Algoma University has to offer compared to some of the bigger universities in Southern Ontario. One of the things that we can do is bring people in to spend a day or two at Algoma University and spend a day or two in Sault Ste. Marie to see what the Soo is like, see what Algoma is like, see what our curling club is like, maybe spend an evening curling with our team in our local league at the curling club. I get to meet some of the parents of some of these recruits that come in. It's great. It's great knowing, getting to meet these people and hoping that maybe some of them will consider coming to Algoma.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time of Algoma, and then the seniors putting it on for the last time?
Yeah, it's great with especially this year. It was really neat because we had ordered all new jackets, and they all had new jackets and sweaters and shirts and pants and over or winter coats coming in. And so I had them over at my house for a barbecue before our season started, and I had all the equipment downstairs in my family room, and I had it all set out. And names were on all of them, and they came down and they couldn't believe all the let's say the swag they were getting for their competition, just to be on the curling team. So it was really neat to watch their expressions and to see them.
What is that like as a head coach, seeing those freshmen achieve those big milestones in their careers?
Well, the ones that have stayed, I haven't had one that stayed for all 4 or 5 years. I've had some for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then they graduate. When they graduate, it's sad sometimes to see them go because you see them grow in the sport. Overall, you see them grow as people over the years, and when they leave, It's sad to see them go, but at the same time, you're kind of proud to see them go because they're getting on with their lives, and they have other goals now that they want to achieve, that they want to do. Hopefully, they'll keep on in curling, um, and many of them do. So,
What are some of your future plans for the curling program moving forward?
well, first of all, we've got to get out and we keep recruiting. I would like to see us put in a junior varsity team so we have a team that we can draw from. That's my biggest goal would be to have two teams, one a varsity team and one a junior varsity team that we could draw from to bring people up as people do graduate.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college curling?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college curling?
Uh, well, they've got to work hard. Um, uh, they've got to learn the game better. Most of them, they've got to all learn their responsibilities on the curling ice. And they've got to get out. And I basically use the example of the Brad Jacobs team that I coached at the Olympics. Those guys they all started with curling with me when they were maybe 8, 9, or 10 years old. I was running an elementary school program at our curling club, and so I use them as an example a lot. And I used them up and said, "Here's what you've got to be like if you want to win." These guys are fit. They are they are committed to curling. One year, I had a curling team of four soccer players, and their main commitment they wanted to come out. They wanted to try it, and I said, "Okay, that's fine. Come on out." And we were having trouble getting a full team together, so I had these four soccer players, and they stayed. Some of them stayed with me for 2 years, and at the end of the second year, I said to them, I said, I know you guys. I appreciate you guys coming out and curling for us because you filled spots on our team. We've been able to field teams on the ice, but your commitment is to soccer, and I can see your passion and so on for soccer. But I want a team of players that has the same passion for soccer, for curling. And that's what I basically got this year.
What advice would you give those players that have aspirations of competing on the national team level?
Oh, it's a long road. That's one. They've got to get out and they've got to go and travel and compete against the top teams across the country. And that's what the Brad Jacobs team did. They spent a lot of time, a lot of weekends away from home, away from families. And these guys, they knew what they wanted and they were committed to it. In fact, they're still committed to it. They're still doing the same thing. Now, the players that I'm coaching at the university level, or even when I coach juniors or when I coached high school teams, I said the same thing. I said, when you get to the point of working or competing as an adult, if you want to compete at the national level, you've got to get out and you've got to compete and take your lumps maybe against the top teams in the country or even some of the top teams in the world and grow from that.
What advice would you give those college coaches looking to get started in coaching in college curling?
College coaches, it's a learning experience. You've got to spend a lot of time getting out and learning what the what the field of curling at the university level is like. You've got to do some traveling. You've got to get out to these different competitions with your teams, and same thing basically. Hopefully, you will grow.
What advice would you give those college coaches looking to bring a curling program to their university?
Boy, you've got to talk to administration and you've got to talk to your athletic directors. You've got to convince them that curling is something that they could use within their athletic program. It's not an expensive sport for the most part. Like the equipment it doesn't come near what you would have with a hockey team or even a football team. It could be one of the less expensive sports, but it could be a great sport. Especially, I'm surprised that they don't have it in, as I said, some of those northern states like Minnesota or North Dakota or Wisconsin, or even down in some of the New England states where curling has taken hold and has started to grow. It could be a great growing sport, or a ground for finding new talent, if they were to have that in there. In our case, university curling filled a void. Basically, our junior championships usually went up to 19, and then they went off to university, and then there was no. They had to wait a year or two, or wait till they finished graduating before they got into men's or adult curling competitions. But now they've got all these junior programs, U20, U21, and university curling has really grown, and it's providing some of the a spot to fill the void for these competitive curlers who want to continue growing in the sport.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the curling program?
Where can they find me?
Mm-hmm.
Social media is probably the easiest. The Algoma University website, the head coaches are listed there. It's probably the easiest.
Thank you again, Coach Tom Coulterman, for your interview, and best luck in your future as the head curling coach at Algoma.
Thanks, Brad. I've enjoyed this.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach, for your interview, and best luck in your future.
Thank you very much, Brad.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.